Hello and welcome to the Penalty Box Perspective podcast. You're joined again by myself, Nathaniel, and my good friend Matt. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, Nathaniel. Yeah, how are you? You all good?
I'm very good. Excited for today's episode. We're going to be touching on some news around the league and then drop into some power rankings. But first of all, I want to touch off again on a bit of a lighter note. I know last night we met up with some of our friends and did our NHL fantasy draft. Do you think that went for you?
Yeah, I'm quite happy with it. Yeah, I think I've been able to put together a half decent team. I know there's eight of us in our league, so yeah, I think all of us have got some pretty deep lineups. And yeah, I mean, we're not going to have any idea until the season starts, and seeing where people kind of fall and where people rise. But I'm sort of quietly confident.
Yeah. I must admit, I had a good time with it. I think I've got a very solid team, if I don't say so myself. Obviously, I'm not going to share the picks I've selected right now in case I fall flat on my face. But uh, yeah, it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Yeah, really good time. Really good time. So as Nathaniel mentioned, we're going to be getting into some power rankings today. Just kind of leading off from the top and heading our way down through all 32 teams, seeing where, as pre-season started, sort of where we have each team situated in terms of where we have them ranked up and down the league. But before that, we do have a couple of interesting pieces of news to start with that we'll get to out the gate, and then we'll move into those rankings. So yeah, if you just want, do you want to start us off on the first bit of news? I think surrounding Joseph Wall of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, it was released the other day, so a bit of sad news. Nobody knows exactly why, and I think we should allow Wall some time and space and not demand to know what's going on. But he has stepped away from for the Leafs for personal reasons. They haven't given a time frame on when he's expected to return. I think that's going to be a big loss for the Leafs. I know they've got Stolarz in goal as well, but yeah, what are your thoughts about the impact on the Leafs, maybe rather than obviously the impact to Wall himself?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, you hit the nail on the head there. I think it's always important when a player decides to step away for personal reasons, and I know that certainly with with social media and stuff, there's always going to be people speculating and oh, he's away for this or he's away for that. But I think when someone steps away for personal reasons, and I think he has mentioned it is something along the lines of a family matter, that person is deserved the utmost privacy with their family at that time. It's not room to speculate. It's not room to try and take guesses over what has or hasn't happened or what is or isn't going on. It will be a big loss for the Leafs. Like you said, they do have Anthony Stolarz who'll be able to sort of hold things down in the interim. But I just hope whatever's happening with Joseph Wall at the moment. I hope he gets everything sorted and we're able to see him back in the league as soon as he's ready. And I will say that the NHLPA, the Players Association that sort of works with the players, do generally tend to be really, really good at supporting players through difficult times, through difficult family times or personal matters or anything like that. So I hope that he's getting any support that he feels he needs at the moment. And yeah, looking forward to seeing him back in goal for the Maple Leafs. But as I said, at a time frame when he's ready.
Yeah, I think you touched on a good point there, where like in the NHL, they do tend to look after players a lot better, I feel, than many other sports where put them out to the ringers and there's all sorts of published articles and things like that. When people generally step away from the NHL for whatever reasons, it generally does remain private, which I think is really great. But yeah, best wishes to Wall and for whatever's going on in his life at the moment. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
the
absolutely.
other bit of
Go on, sorry.
Yeah, the other bit of news I was going to touch upon is I've been sprouting on all throughout the episodes we've done so far is how Vegas is going to be impacted by the loss of Pietrangelo, who like a month ago came out and said that like all the injuries over the years have taken a toll on his body and he's going to be out for for quite a bit of time. And potentially he might not ever be able to be in a position to play hockey again. And that was certainly my impression. However, it's come out this week that he's been doing some sort of rehabilitation work. He hasn't gone for the surgery yet that he thought he was going to go for. And at the minute, he's going to hold that surgery off. And potentially, he's not going to be out for, well, he's not going to be able to stop. He's going to continue playing. But he actually might be back this year. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I might be eating my words here.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I know we've touched on it, and we've kind of gone into a bit of depth about how Vegas are going to be able to cope with, with the loss of Petrangelo and how that's going to affect them, particularly on their defensive end. But yeah, he's kind of then dropped that bombshell on us and said that he thinks he might be able to play and might potentially be able to to play this year, which would be amazing. And we see it all the time, don't we, with NHL players of the kind of injuries that they play through and the kind of the injuries they accumulate over the course of their careers, and especially when you get towards like the postseason, and it always comes out sort of over the off season in the summertime of, oh, this player's been playing with this injury or that injury. I'm pretty sure Matthew Tkachuk played the other year with like a broken sternum in the playoffs, which is just yeah, it goes to show just how tough these athletes are, and how much that they want to be as impactful on the ice as possible to help their teammates to, if they're in the playoffs, help try and be as contribute as much as possible. But yeah, hopefully we will see Petrangelo back. Maybe it might be in time for the for the postseason. But we'll just have to wait and see. But again, sort of similarly to to Wall. I mean, I know they're completely different circumstances, but I think what's important for Petrangelo is him stepping back into the game when he feels ready. There isn't any rush, because potentially the detriment of him stepping back in before he's ready could end up causing sort of long-term issues down the road. So whatever injuries it is that he's dealing with, and if he feels that he needs a surgery, if he wants to get that surgery now, he can be on long-term injured reserves for the for the Golden Knights, so his cap hit won't be factored in whilst that happens. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because he's a great player and someone who I'm sure Vegas would love to have. But yeah, if you can get even an 85-90% fit Alex Petrangelo, then that could be a real difference maker for them.
And it won't be remiss, the cynical part of me feeding into the tropes of Vegas, who love a good long-term injured reserve player coming back for the playoffs, fit and healthy, and ready to smash my Minnesota Wild again in the playoffs.
Yeah,
It
happens
seems to
every
happen
year.
every year.
Happens every
Hap-
single year.
Yeah, so yes, I do want him to be fit and healthy and play and be as happy as he wants to be. But as a Wild fan, yeah, if he comes back fit and healthy and just to demolish the Wild in the playoffs in the first round again, I'm going to be so upset. But that's just from a sporting perspective, not from a personal perspective.
Yeah, no,
Um,
absolutely,
so,
absolutely.
right, shall we head into it? The main purpose for this episode is to somehow rank these 32 teams based off of obviously last season, what we know of them, and what we know about them heading into the pre-season from the off-season. We will be doing several of these throughout the year at different points, generally when there's a lull in games or where it feels natural to do so, just to keep track on where we think these teams are performing. A disclaimer out there, these are not necessarily the power standings. Obviously, right now, teams haven't really played any meaningful games yet. However, I am conscious of the fact that we may have teams ranked higher than others, even though the records may suggest otherwise. But we will surely rationalise our decisions and explain ourselves, Matt. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I know it's always difficult with rankings and things, isn't it? Especially before the season starts, and like you said, we will be revisiting these, and it'll be really interesting, sort of reflective practice to go back and have a look at where teams are at this point in the season, our rankings, and maybe where they are in a few months' time, or around the break for the Olympics, or around the trade deadline, that sort of things. And because I'm sure there will be teams that end up sort of flying up the rankings, and there could well be a couple of teams that end up dropping as well. Yeah, so we've both accumulated our own list of power rankings, and then from that we've kind of been able to aggregate those and kind of make a combined power ranking sort of 1 through 32. So there are a few where we're going to have to be in a little bit of discussion as to where their final position's going to be. But yeah, I think we were both unanimous in number one. So I'll let you lead off on that.
Yeah. I mean, despite them finishing third in a division last year, I don't think you can rule out the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions as being the best team in the sport at the moment. So I think unanimously we picked the Florida Panthers. This will be the first team in our power rankings. Not sure if there's too much really to discuss here. Is there any points you want to raise about that?
Just with the Panthers, obviously they re-signed all their players that they were expected to. Like I said, they might not necessarily be flying in the in the regular season and and top their division. But we know that that's not really what the Panthers are all about. They're all about, they're a team built for playoff hockey. And yeah, I think anybody thinking that there's no shot of them, being able to get that third Stanley Cup, I think that would be an unwise decision to bet against them. I'm very comfortable with them being ranked number one.
Good. Right, we'll move into our first discussion point, really, is our second and third place teams. Now, I have the Winnipeg Jets, the Memorial Trophy winners last year, as my second overall team. Meanwhile, you have the Vegas Golden Knights as your second overall team. So I think I'll lead off with my pitch then, because one way or the other we'll have to determine who's going to be in second place and who's going to be in third place. For me, Jets are the obviously Memorial Trophy winners, the best regular season team, great all-round team, did well in the playoffs, even if they didn't get too far down the line. I just think they're a well-constructed squad who will absolutely just machine people. They play in the hardest, for me, the hardest division in hockey at the minute. So to win the Memorial Trophy coming out of that division shows their strength. And I don't think they've lost that many players, lost that greatness to them from last year heading into this year. I don't know whether you want to make your pitch for the Golden Knights.
Yeah, just one thing on the Jets. Sorry, I think you mentioned Memorial Trophy. Is that the President's Trophy? Sorry for being the best regular season team.
Yes, and I'm an idiot.
No,
Yes, I
no,
meant the
it's
President's
okay. I
Trophy.
think everyone will know what you mean. Yeah, I mean it's a little bit of a flip flop really between two and three for us. I had the Golden Knights and Jets at two and three. You had the Jets at two and Vegas at three. So we are really splitting hairs here. The only thing that had the Jets for me at three as opposed to two is, we know how good Connor Hellebuck can be in the regular season, but the playoff issues for him, it's not just been a one season sort of hoodoo. It's been a regular occurrence, and I think that requires the Jets to manage his workload a bit more in the regular season, because I know he does play a lot of the regular season games, and he's almost sort of out of gas by the time that the postseason comes around. The only reason that I had the Knights over the Jets is, well, the acquisition of Mitch Marner. I think that could potentially put them over the top, and also that past experience they have of playoff success. Obviously, they have won a Stanley Cup before, and I just think that it's maybe more of a mentality thing with the team where they've got that prior experience of knowing what it takes to get over the line. And I think that from a mentality perspective, the Jets can get a little bit rocked easily if Hellebuck has a couple of shaky games, because he is arguably their best player. He was the best player in the league last year. Um, so I think if he starts to sort of falter a little when it comes to the crunch time, then that can make the rest of the team sort of a bit uneasy. So that was the reason why I had
So,
Vegas over the Jets for me. But again, really, we would be splitting hairs.
and where would you think then with the Golden Knights with their goaltender with Aiden Hill, who equally had a poor playoff performance?
Yeah, I think he struggled last year as well, but I think what separates it for me is the if you've got two teams with faltering goaltenders, I think the Golden Knights have the on ice players, their offense and defense. I think that they have a little bit more than the Jets in sort of playoff situations, that sort of thing. To get them to get them over the top. And I just think that the acquisition of Marner is going to raise everyone else's game as well, because he's such an elite playmaker that you could potentially see an absolutely explosive year from someone like Jack Eichel or something like that. Um, so yeah, that was sort of the separator for me.
Yeah. Now, I think with the news for Pietrangelo, I think you're right with Marner. I probably disagree more with the Hellebuck versus Hill. I think Hellebuck's a 10 times a better keeper. I know he's suffered in the playoffs, but Hill hasn't shown that either. I would feel inclined to happy to switch my pick over unless I've managed to convince you the otherwise of the Jets.
Um, I'd be happy with Golden Knights at 2 and with Winnipeg at 3. Not just because that's my pick, but again, like the difference between 2 and 3 really it's minute. And I think we could, when we revisit this later on, I'm more than happy to be to stand corrected. But we'll go with Vegas at 2 for now, and we'll have Winnipeg at 3.
Yeah, I think can't argue with that really. But we'll move on to number 4 in the rankings. Now, this is another unanimous choice for the two of us in that the Edmonton Oilers. Bit strange that we've been discussing the Golden Knights and the Jets also from the Western Conference, but the Western Conference uh, Stanley Cup representatives, the Edmonton Oilers, we've got down at 4. I just think overall, in terms of the whole team dynamic and how they're going to do this year, I think Vegas and Jets are in a lot better position than the Oilers. But I'm not sure how much you want to deep dive the Oilers right now with their ranking at 4.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much happy with them at 4. Obviously, the talent of McDavid and Draisaitl, can't be denied. But if there are teams that can find a way to shut those guys down, sort of by hook or by crook, then I think that if you stop those two, you kind of nullify a lot of what the Oilers have to offer. And I think, with the aforementioned teams before them, I just think they have a lot more sort of range up and down the lineup. That if you can shut one guy down, they've still got other people that can hurt you. So that was kind of the separator for me. Whilst they arguably have, as we've discussed previously, two of the best 5 players in the league, beyond that, the quality does start to wane quite significantly the further down the lineup you go. So yeah, I'm happy with our unanimous pick for the Oilers at 4, and actually our 4, 5, and 6 picks were identical. So I'll let you kick us off into number 5.
Yeah. For me, this was another close one. I do feel like the Oilers are maybe a step above these two teams just purely on performance in recent years. But we both got the Colorado Avalanche at 5 and the Carolina Hurricanes at 6. And I think these two are sort of very sort of close teams. Both got their obviously high level squads, both sort of great team squads. Obviously, Avalanche have got McKinnon and Makar as sort of standout players, sort of big names. But I think they are very good, strong teams and deserve to go 5 and 6.
Yeah, definitely. I think, even looking at the Avalanche, obviously they've got Marty Natchez there as well. They've got Devon Taves. They've also, how Landeskog's going to do when he comes back. If he's going to be fully fit and firing, I think that puts them maybe just ahead of the Hurricanes. And I think that it's the star power that the Avalanche have, that puts them just over the Hurricanes for me. But the Hurricanes are a very, very good team. They've had a fantastic off season, as we've discussed previously. So yeah, I think the 4, 5, and 6 picks, again, we're not talking about sort of massive differences at this particular moment, and any of those first 6 teams that we had can be can be well within cup contention this year, I think.
Yeah. Now, the seventh overall pick is another one where we've almost a bit disagreed on. Uh, the seventh pick for me was the Leafs, and that rounded off the top sort of seven teams I think probably got in with the best shout of winning a Stanley Cup this year. Meanwhile, you had the Lightning in the seventh overall pick. As we're going to explain with our representative lists, the Lightning actually had a better average score, so we've actually got the Lightning in the seventh overall ranking here. What makes the difference between the Lightning and the Leafs for you?
For me, I think as we've discussed with Vegas with the acquisition of Marner, I think for Leafs it's going to be potentially the loss of Marner, particularly through the regular season. I know obviously there's a million questions about Marner in the postseason, but through the regular season he has consistently been putting up massive numbers, and that's going to be a massive deficit. And I know that they're really confident about the ability of Matthew Nyes, but and he will be an absolutely outstanding player. I just don't think he's necessarily at that point just yet. And plus, you think there's another year on the back end of John Tavares' career, and ultimately that sort of core that they had is weaker than it was this time last season. Whilst the Lightning have very much kind of stood firm on what they had. Um, they've still got Kucherov, Point, Hagel, all those players, Hedman and Chernak, and everyone putting up sort of big numbers and playing really well. The big sort of separator for me as well between the two was in the goaltending. Obviously Vasilevsky with the Lightning, and Stolars or Wall potentially down the line. I just think that Vasilevsky has that extra step to his game, then that will get the Lightning a little bit further than the Leafs will.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with the points you've made there. I just feel like on their day, putting money on like who's going to win a matchup, etc. I just think the Leafs have got that star power as opposed to the Lightning, where I don't know whether it's just the media love the Leafs and talk about the Leafs constantly, whereas the Lightning tend to fly a little more under the radar. But I don't know why. I think it might just be personal preference for me. I think the Leafs are a better team than the Lightning in general, and that's where I'd stick it on. But I think in terms of analysis, I think you pretty much nailed it there as to where the Lightning are in comparison to the Leafs. But that's one I've certainly got my eye on for who does better this year. I think that they're quite closely pegged.
Well, definitely, yeah. I think, and again, I don't think that you having the Leafs at 7 is absolutely outrageous. I mean, I had them at 9, so I didn't have them sort of too far separated apart. I also just think as well that the Lightning have that John Cooper factor behind the bench as well. They've got a really, really elite coach there, and I just think that will sort of just could be the difference between a few games extra won across the board. Um, but yeah, we'll move down into well, we had the Lightning at 7, and then the Leafs subsequently at number 8, which then put at number 9 the Minnesota Wild. Now you had the Wild ranked at number 9, I had them ranked at number 8. So they've fallen as the ninth ranked team in our aggregate. But I'll open the floor to you here on your Minnesota Wild. Does this ranking come with a little asterisk of a Kaprizov extension?
Or Kaprizov injury. Uh, I am surprised that you put the Wild ahead of the Leafs, if I'm honest. And to be fair, I thought when I was doing my rankings that I was maybe a bit biased and putting them a little too high, maybe. But then I see you put them at 8, so therefore I feel a bit more validated in myself and our chances this year. But yeah, I think they've got a solid team. They showed last year with pretty much the same core. If they remain healthy and playing well, then they're a really good team to back it, and they could do really well. I just think they're not that deep on the back end. They could be a little fragile. They haven't got proven winners, as it were. So for me, it knocks them down more into the playoff hopefuls. Obviously, they were a wild card team last year, I'm hoping we can make the push to finish third in our division. But I think I still think they're a little bit high. But I don't know whether that's just my pessimism.
Potentially, I think we're all naturally sort of conditioned, aren't we, to be either overly negative or overly positive about our own teams. Um, for me, what kind of I had in sort of factor with my ranking is again those young players who we've seen a lot of, and I'm thinking in particular sort of Rossi and Faber and Boldy, especially, is just them being another year on. And I think we could potentially see like a massive improvement from Brock Faber, for someone who's already a very talented defenseman, could really sort of rise and be a really elite defenseman this year. Eriksson Ek as well is a fantastic piece to have, but I maybe should have put a little star next to mine. I think I had the Wild ranked at 8, providing they get 65 games out of Kirill Kaprizov. That includes an extension as well. I think if they end up trading Kaprizov, I think they would slide a little down my list. But yeah, I'm optimistic for the Wild this year. I think that they're going to turn a lot of heads. They've got a great goalkeeping tandem. I think especially seeing what Jesper Wallstedt can do, as well, sort of in that rotation, will be really really exciting for them.
They are a big question mark. They're the biggest fluctuating team. I feel they could either do really well and exceed expectations, but equally they could also drop. I'm not saying they're going to be bottom dweller teams, etc. That we'll get onto, but I just think with the teams that we've got behind them in these rankings here, are a bit more proven in this realm. I do think I think we're both like setting them up to exceed maybe expectations, which is a good thing. I just hope, obviously, personally, that they carry it out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. So that moves to our number 10 ranked team, the New Jersey Devils. Now, again, very close in this one. You had the Devils at 10, I had them at 11. So yeah, what do you think about the Devils? What gave them that extra nudge for you?
Again, I think it's the optimistic view. They're very similar to the Wild, where they've got like decent young players and a solid core, if not spectacular. Um, it's simply down to Jack Hughes. If he's fit and healthy and firing on all cylinders, his brother takes another step up. They have lost a couple of players, but replaced them with some decent ones as well. It's just, I think they're a solid team. I think they're going to be in a weaker division. They got a chance to really push on and make some progress, and that's where I think they come above some of the older aging teams that we're going to be talking about.
I know we still don't have a contract on Luke Hughes. I'm not remotely worried about that at all. I think they will get that done imminently. It seems like everybody wants that to get done as well. So yeah, I think they're sort of right about where you would expect. Like you said, they're playing in a slightly weaker division, um, and that could give them the opportunity to to make the playoffs and have a good go at it. So yeah, I'm very happy with where we've stuck the Devils in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, so number 11, maybe a bit more of a contentious selection here. You might have expected them to be a bit higher up. Dallas Stars is our 11th ranked team. Now you had them at 10 in your rankings, and I had them down at 12. So they are sort of bang in the middle of where we've said. Uh, I mean, for me, I'll lead off with the Stars. I think I've said before last week with the head coach change, players, some players leaving, etc. I think they've just made a desperation move to try get them over the hump before they lose their sort of their golden generation, as it were. But I think they've panicked, and I really think that they're going to drop down lower than what we expect them to see. I still got like money on them to get back to the playoffs and still perform. And I mean, they might prove us wrong or prove me wrong and get back to the conference finals. However, I think in comparison to the other teams that are there, I think they're dropping really.
Yeah, I mean they are the central division is completely stacked at the moment. So there's a lot of very very good teams, and in comparison to the Devils, the central division is a lot stronger at the moment, in my opinion, anyway. And like you said, the head coaching change is going to be the big decider for me, because they've got a lot of very very talented players up and down the lineup. They've got that elite level goaltender in Jay Cottinger. And then they've got, fantastic defensemen. They've got Harley, they've got Heiskanen, they've got Lindell, and tying up Mikko Rantanen to that big deal as well. They've definitely got the tools. It just requires the person behind the bench to be using them correctly. And if they can, then yeah, I think they're going to be, they will be right back there towards the conference finals. I think so. That's sort of the only question mark, is seeing how they get on with the new coaching change, with the new system. If that system's going to change or differ as much as to what they had under Pete DeBoer. So yeah, we'll have to see. But I just think that what they actually have, albeit on paper, is simply sort of, it's not going to require a coaching masterclass to be able to get the most out of those. I think a lot of those players have got a lot of experience. They should be able to sort of just plug and play.
Yeah. I think we'll move on with that one then. So the 12th overall, well, the 12th pick in our rankings, the New York Rangers. You had the Rangers at 12, and I had them at 14. So you had them better than me. So why do you think they should be so high up?
I just think they're due for a bounce back season. I think that they had a little bit of an off year last year. Obviously, I know they lost Chris Kreider over the summer, which will be a bit of a gap for them to fill. And I know that Panarin's another year older, etc. But they've added JT Miller in there. He's above all else a really really good leader. I know they've made the decision as well to make him the new captain of the New York Rangers. So again, it'll be a slightly different voice, sort of leading the team. Um, yeah, I think again, similarly to the Stars, they've got a very good, they've got very good players up and down the lineup, and I just think a few of those players are due to have a bit of a bounce back. Hopefully, we can see a bit more from Mika Zibanejad this year. Um, and the likes of Adam Fox and whatnot. But yeah, I think they're due for a little bit of a bounce back, because they were President's Trophy winners 2 years ago and then missed the playoffs the following year. So I think last year they were a lot worse than what their abilities and roster would suggest. So I think they're just due
Yeah.
for a little bit of a rebound season.
Yeah, I think they did too well the year before, and then they did a lot worse last year. I think it's actually a fair selection to put them where they're at, because they're probably going to come back to sort of the middle ground. Hopefully, they can stop being so hot and cold and just be lukewarm. I think they'd be probably happier with that. Uh, but overall, I mean, we talk about the 12 team here. We both got them to make the playoffs. So I think that's a good selection there. I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. So moving into the lucky 13 spot, we were unanimous on this one. We had the LA Kings. So yeah, I'll let you lead off on the Kings for us, then, Nathaniel.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't really know what to say about the Kings other than that they are just a solid playoff team. They're not spectacular. They are aging. They haven't made that many changes, but they are just a solid team, which is why I think, in comparison to teams like the Wild and the Devils, are a bit more uh, exuberant, a bit more up and down kind of thing. We're not sure what we're going to quite get out of them. I think we put them ahead of the Kings, let's say, just because of the ceiling is going to be higher, despite the floor potentially being lower as well. I think the Kings are what they are. We know what they are, and I think that's why they're solid, lower sort of playoff team. I,
Yeah,
I don't know if
spot
you
on,
got much
mate.
more to add.
No, yeah, I think we we've discussed ad nauseum really. I know it's discussed regularly that that hockey is the ultimate team sport. We saw it last year with the Washington Capitals with Ovechkin's goal chase and everything, and how much a team can rally for that sort of thing. And with Anze Kopitar announcing the other day that this is going to be his final season, I just think the Kings are going to have they're just going to have that extra 5% each night. Just to make sure that they're giving Kopitar as much as they can for his final year. And I also just think that, Quentin Byfield's just going to have that explosive year for me. But yeah, I think I'm very happy with where we've put them. Like you said, I think they're lower than the Wild, but that that's due to the potential ceiling of the Wild, as you've discussed. Whilst I think the Kings are very solid, and I think we know what they are. I think they know what they are, and I think that they will sort of fall right into form.
Yeah. Now, you touched on Ovi's goal chase last year and how that might impact our selections for this team, but we got the Washington Capitals 14th in our rankings. Uh, One of the big decisive choices for us, really, because I had them all the way up at 11 and you had them down in 16. And I'm guessing that is just because you think that they played out of their skins last year to get over that goal record, and they're going to actually come back down more to earth this year. Am I right?
Mind reader, mate. Yeah, that was my exact thinking. I think we did see that once the record was achieved, the Capitals kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit, and I know that was kind of always due to be expected. But I just, yeah, I just think there isn't necessarily that big team event that they can all sort of band together for. Don't get me wrong, they're still a good team, but Ovechkin's going to be 40 this year. See, John Carlson's on the back end of of his career. I know Pierre-Luc Dubois had a career year last year, had his best points return since he's joined the league, and it'll just be seeing whether he can build on that or not, and really just seeing what Ovechkin's going to be able to offer at this particular age. I know we saw the likes of Dylan Strome pick up massive numbers last year from just feeding him the puck all year. Um, but I just think that without that unified team goal, that there maybe just there. Whilst we talked about the Kings having that extra 5% for Kopitar, I just think the Capitals could maybe lose that 5% each night, and maybe just not quite have the same sort of oomph they had last year, which could just see them, in those close games, maybe just come out on the wrong end.
Not to disagree. I do think there is merit to what you're saying, absolutely. But what they showed last year is that they can achieve it. They can do what they were doing. As much as they might have had that extra motivation, I think going into this year, they'll have had that reset to go, look, we can actually do this. We can actually push forward and make that extra step. And once they've got the teeth into that, I think that they owe it to themselves to push themselves forward. So that might be their own motivation. Because these aren't professional players who just go necessarily to go make a living. They probably enjoy the sport. They want to win. They're competitors, and I think that will still give them that edge to that extra motivation. Not to disagree with your point about the extra motivation, etc. I just think they're going to have that drive this year, and I'm not going to put them as Stanley Cup favourites or anything like that. But I do think they're going to be a solid playoff team this year. But I'm not too unhappy looking at the teams who placed ahead of them. I'm not going to shake my fists up and down to say they should be higher in our rankings at 14. I think ultimately that might be a fair position for them.
Yeah, I think it kind of averages out. I think, and that moves us into number 15, the Montreal Canadiens. Now I had the Habs ranked 14th in mine. You had them 16th in yours. So again, a nice close one. They've averaged out at 15. I just think with these lot. It's that team's been rebuilding, and I think they're all at that position now where they're going to make that jump. You know, that with the acquisition as well of Ivan Demidov and him coming across, we've seen what he can do already in a limited sample size. Seeing how he's going to cope with all 82 games, I mean, he has the potential to be an absolute, an absolute superstar. And I think adding that to a team that already has a lot of, very good. They're a very fast team as well, very fast team. Um, that I think they're just going to blow some teams out the building night in, night out. Um, I mean, having them at 15, I think that, potentially in a wild card spot or something akin to that. I think they are maybe missing that little bit of, veteran leadership and experience to get them, get them up and over the line. But I think that they're definitely going to be up there, making a claim for the wild card spots, or maybe even the a spot within their own division.
Yeah. I think with the Habs, again, they've got a high ceiling, but also a high floor, low floor rather. Uh, They haven't quite proven it yet. However, we all think they're going to do really well, which is probably why they're a bit lower down. How they start the season is going to be absolutely key to how they go on. I think if they hit the ground running, they'll be able to use that and push and maintain it. And if they start off slow, I have a feeling that all their young minds and stuff like that might start to impact them, crumble under the pressure, etc. So I think this is the big what if team this year. I can realistically see them going either way. That's obviously makes sense with them being at 15th, I guess.
Definitely, yeah, couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. That does lead us into another debating point for 16 and 17, respectively. It's a little bit of a toss-up between the Blues and the Senators. So I had the Senators at 15. I had the Blues at 19. Whilst you had the Senators at 19 and the Blues at 15. So, yeah, a little bit of disparity there. So I'll let you start with the Blues. Obviously, you've got them higher than me. So what do you think gives St. Louis that extra bit?
I just think the way they reacted to him last year, and he's got another off season to put on his influence there. Like they were already a wild card team, or thereabouts last year. Like they're going to improve over the like over this off season going into next year. I'm putting my fist down now and saying they should be higher than the Senators. I like the Senators, but they haven't proved anything. Not much has really changed. They're a good, solid team, but there's just no way that they should be higher than the Blues at this time of the year.
You know what? I am going to be happily convinced there. I think I had the Blues at 19. I will say, I think I've maybe let my personal feelings get a little bit in the way there. I don't have a lot of affinity or love for the St. Louis Blues. And I think maybe I've let that creep into my thinking and maybe it slid them down a bit more to 19. I think maybe if I was to look at it a little bit more impartially, I think yeah, I probably would maybe have them a bit higher. So I'm very happy for the Blues to be at 16 and Senators to be at 17. I do like the Senators. Again, I think they do have that star power in Brady Tkachuk and Tim Stützle as well, who I think can be an absolutely massive player for them. But I think, as we've discussed with a couple of other teams, that coaching difference could really be the difference. And they do have some very talented players to the Blues. And I'm happy to stand corrected there. So yeah, well fought.
Yeah, thank you for not fighting too heavily on that. And I mean, I agree. I'm not a Blues fan by any stretch of the imagination, and I can't say I'm a big fan of Jim Montgomery and the Bruins and what he's did there. But on the basis of this exercise, I just think you saw it in action last year. I can't remember off the top of my head how many games they won in a row, but to have that kind of reaction, and yes, okay, it might go cold, but I don't think it will. I think they're going to be solid. And again, I don't mind the Senators at all whatsoever. I think they're going to be a good, solid wildcard candidate team this year. But yeah, I think they're in a good spot at 17. I think. that doesn't do them an injustice.
Yeah, I'd say that was about right. I'd say that was about right. Which moves us down to 18. In the 18 spot, we've got the Vancouver Canucks. Now, I had Vancouver at 18, and you had them. Where did you have them? You had them at 17. Okay, so yeah, again, I think once we get to this sort of middle of the pack, uh, again, it's fine margins. Um, Quinn Hughes' health is going to play a large part in all of this. It sounds like he's going to be fit and raring to go. And providing they've sorted everything out, all the issues from last season, which it sounds like they have, um, I don't think they're going to be right up there in playoff contention. If they're able to put together a good streak and a good run, I could see them maybe making a bit of a late push for it. Um, but I mean, I'm quite happy with having the Canucks sort of in the middle of the pack. Just out of interest, what put them slightly above for you, or anything in particular there?
I just think in terms of my overall lineup, I just think they kind of just fit there nicely. Uh, they're again another hot and cold team. We don't know where. I mean, I don't know exactly how they're going to be this year. Right, that they are a big question mark for me. I think they've got the talent, they've got quality. They've got Quinn Hughes for now, anyway. Um, now, if yeah, I don't really got much to add if I'm honest. Like, if they sort their off ice drama out and they can hit the ice and be consistent, I think they might be pushed up a little bit and being the likes with sort of the Rangers and the Kings and that sort of side. I don't think they've got it in them to be Stanley Cup contenders at the moment. But until they show some more consistency, they are going to be down into just missing the playoffs for me.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
completely fair enough. Completely fair enough. And that kind of gets us into this sort of 19, 20, and 21 spot here. So we've got the Mammoth at 19, we've got the Flames at 20, and the Blue Jackets at 21. Now, I had the Mammoth at 17, you had them at 21, so they've kind of balanced out perfectly at 19 there. I had the Flames at 21. You had them at 18. So again, there's a little bit of disparity moving through those three. And then we both had the Blue Jackets respectively at 20, but due to the positioning of the others, that does see them fall to 21. So as we're kind of like slap bang in the middle of this pack, I think I was a bit higher on the Mammoth than you. Um, I just think, again, I think they've just got that extra little bit of just class and quality. With another year of Dylan Gunther and Clayton Keller and co, a team that's hopefully not literally found their identity in their team name, but I think they're a team that's finally figuring out sort of the direction they want to go to. That was the reason why I had them a little bit higher, and kind of the reason why I had the Flames a little bit lower, was just in terms of their identity, not really sure necessarily how they're going to look. I think a large part of how well they do, certainly in their defensive end, will relay on how well Zane Parekh does in his rookie year. I know that he's someone who garners a lot of conversation, not most for his on ice qualities, but also his personality off the ice as well, which I know does raise a few questions. And he's someone who speaks very, very frankly. Um, but yeah, with them and the Mammoth and the Flames and the Blue Jackets, are there any sort of key talking points you wanted to get over with any of those at all?
Yeah, I think I had a hard time with these picks. I knew they were sort of around about the same, and I had them really in with the Senators as well, like as a four, really, in my mind, as sort of four solid teams, not spectacular, like, but again, solid middle of the road teams. And I went with the Flames ahead of anyone else, just I guess maybe due to sort of personal bias. I like the Flames. Um, I liked them back in the day when he had Gaudreau and Monaghan, and that's probably why I quite like the Blue Jackets now as well. I do think the Flames have got a solid core. They were just missed the playoffs last year. I think they were the better of the three teams last year, and therefore that's kind of why I've just sort of put them there. Blue Jackets, again, very young. They probably exceeded expectations last year, and I think they might go down a little bit in comparison to last year, but likewise they might push on, but a little bit less consistent than the Flames, which is why I had them below. And then the Mammoth, I don't really know what to think of the Mammoth. I still think I've got a bit of Arizona taint on them, where I just think they're a bit mediocre. I'm happy to be proved wrong. I think that's kind of why how it's set up to be the Mammoth, the Flames, and the Blue Jackets in that order. Simply because I think the Mammoth are actually probably a good team, and they're pushing on, doing well. And then the Flames in the middle, and then the Blue Jackets following up the rear. But I think they're very similar, very similar trajectories, and I don't think they're going to gun one way or the other. To be fair, I think that they're probably going to finish around about there.
Yeah, no complaints from me. No complaints. And that moves us into our next debate between the Red Wings and the Ducks. I had the Red Wings at 22, the Ducks at 23. You had the Ducks at 22 and the Red Wings at 23. So you've gone with the Ducks in the higher position. So I'll let you fight your corner with the Ducks as to why.
I just think, like we said with the Wild and the Devils earlier, I'm a big fan of teams who are making efforts to change and have some excitement. They've signed lots of players, they've got lots of youth players. They've got the new head coach, despite being controversial. He's proven winner, proven success, proven success. I think they're a team definitely on the up, making progress. Obviously, not quite to get the playoffs this year, but I just think in comparison to the Red Wings, who are kind of the same old Red Wings, they've got the obviously decent players. Dylan Larkin still there and going strong. I just think I have the Ducks ahead of the Red Wings by just a touch, and that's just due to the higher ceiling potential to push on.
Yeah, again, I don't disagree with that. Again, we are talking on a knife edge here. I think the Ducks, for me, it will. There obviously are still big questions over the McTavish contract and whether he's going to stay, whether he's going to go. He is a very, very good player. So if they do lose him, that will obviously cause them some issues, just with their in relation to their depth. But I think you're absolutely right that the Ducks they've made that decision that they're going to go with Joel Quenneville and hopefully, I mean, I know he's had a couple of years out the game, but it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully his coaching skills haven't faded overnight. And maybe he's in a position to take these guys on to the next step. So yeah, I'm definitely happy to have the Ducks at 22 and the Red Wings at 23 there. I don't really disagree with what you're saying about the Red Wings either. I think it's a little bit sort of same old, same old. And it'd just be a case of seeing if they can, if they can take that next step or not, with Larkin and Raymond and Sider and wondering what they're going to get out of Patrick Kane this year again. Is he going to be able to light it up with DeBrincat in the same way as he has done last year? So yeah, no, happy to have the Ducks at 22 and the Red Wings at 23 there for me.
That's very gracious. I wonder what you're aiming for later down the line. um, so that moves on to the 24th overall spot, where we have got the Islanders in. Now you had the Islanders at 24, and I had them at 25, so a fairly solid pick there. For me, again, a bit uninspiring team, the Islanders. I guess you could sort of tie them into the Red Wings for me, same kind of jib. Obviously, I'm excited to see Schaefer and see what he's going to be doing. But I think there can't be too much complaints with the Islanders at 24.
No, not at all. Completely agree. Obviously, yes, Matthew Schaefer is a very exciting acquisition, but it kind of came at the cost of Noah Dobson, which big shoes to fill. So yeah, I've got no problem with the Islanders being where they are. I don't think they'd be expected to be in sort of any sort of playoff contention this year. That'll be a very different conversation a few years down the line, but we'll get to that conversation a few years down the line.
Yeah. And it's much the same again with the Flyers at 25. You had them at 25 and I had them at 26. So again, they've been brought up by one spot from where I've put them, which I'm not arguing too much with. I think last year they finished bottom of the division last year. I don't think that's going to happen again. I think they're a better team than that. Um, and that's why they sort of shot up more than maybe further down the list where you might have expected to see them. I just think they got a chance to sort of bounce back and show that they've actually can play like Tortorella wanted them to, but couldn't get them to.
Yeah, completely agree. I think they're also potentially going to be the beneficiary of certainly one of the teams we'll get to later down the line here, with certain teams in that division getting worse. I think they will, as a result, be a little bit better by default. But yeah, I don't think they're as bad as last year's performance showed. I think they are a better team than that. So yeah, I'm quite happy to have them sort of at 25. They'll they'll work their way back up eventually. It is going to be a bit of a process for them. But yeah, I don't see them sort of setting off any fireworks this year. I'm quite happy with where they are.
Yeah, and now we are getting towards the bottom end of the rankings here. Now, somewhat surprisingly, this 26th overall team we've got in our rankings is your Chicago Blackhawks. Now, I had them at 27, and like you with the Wilds, I got them higher than you. You have them down at 28, but due to other teams, they've been pushed up to 26th. So I'll let you lead off on the Blackhawks. What makes you think that they may not be making as much of a jump as you may expect from them?
I just think that I mean they finished third bottom of the NHL last year, so they finished kind of ranked down in at 30. I think they are going to improve this year. I just don't think that that's necessarily going to be reflected in the actual standings itself. I think the standings will improve, and I think that Jeff Blashill will be able to sort of get them some some wins from behind the bench. I think Spencer Knight has the capacity to get them some wins from from between the pipes and have some. I have no doubt that the Blackhawks will win some games this year that they have absolutely no business being in. I think it will improve. But I just don't think that's going to reflect necessarily as much in these standings as people might expect. Simply because they were so far away last season. I think even if I mean, I don't have last year's standings off the top of my head. Even if they won 5 more games this year, and picked up an extra 10 points in the standings, it's still only going to put them sort of fifth, sixth bottom of the league. So that's kind of my reasoning there. But I think it's less about the standings this year and more about those young players taking those next steps, and seeing how they seeing how they adapt to the league and more sort of how the on ice product looks as opposed to necessarily just focusing on wins and losses.
Yeah, and for me, the teams I put behind the Blackhawks, I think my arguments are that they are worse teams than the Blackhawks, rather than the Blackhawks being better than them, if that makes sense.
That
I
is
know they
completely fair.
argue about the same point. They argue the same point, but I think it's from that perspective. Um, I mean, that leads us on then to our penultimate sort of major debating point here, and one of the biggest sort of disparities that we've seen within these rankings. So 27, 28, we got to decide between the Seattle Kraken and the Nashville Predators. Now, I had the Kraken up at 24, so along with the Red Wings and Islanders in my sort of mind with where they're playing at, but you had them all the way down at 30. And then with the Predators, you had them at 26, so just ahead of where we're talking about them, and I had them at 28. The reason why I haven't just put the Kraken ahead, because the way I worked out these rankings, in that if there's a clear team that's picked higher than the other one, they would normally take the spot. But with you having them down at 30, I really want to know why you think the Kraken are so poor this year.
In the worst way possible, I would just describe the Kraken as mid. Like they are just they're a painfully mid team, and I think there is just nothing. There's just nothing exciting there. And I know it's not necessarily, you don't get points for excitement, but I just think that they're lacking quality. I think they're lacking in star power. I think they're a team that are a couple. They'll be more exciting in a couple of years' time for sure. Once some of those players get their feet under the table a bit more in the NHL. But I think they're just an incredibly uninspiring team, and I just don't think that there's anything necessarily that's going to sort of propel them up the standings. again, maybe potentially personal feelings of maybe had them ranked down a little bit further than maybe I would have put them. But for me, they're a particularly uninspiring team, and I just don't think that the quality is there. They've just got an awful lot of sort of middle ground players, with some very much middle of the ground sort of coaching and management. And I think that we've talked about sort of the fizzle effect of the Kraken in the last few weeks, about that sort of waning. Um, yeah, there just isn't anything to excite me there. And when I was looking at the other teams, I could identify reasons as to why I think they would be better, and by that sort of default, I think Seattle ended up just sliding more down the rankings for me.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm very much on the same page as you. They're almost turning into a bit, well, a bit more a steady version of the Sabres, which is something that we'll talk about in due course. But for me, I just think, yeah, they're very mid. There's nothing exciting, but are they a bad team? Are they going to be like, in your eyes, the 30th worst team in the league? That'd be my question. But I think it's good when we're talking in a is it a Kraken or Predators type of conversation to address the Predators and where they're at. Obviously, the past few off seasons they've gone after big names and gone down that route. They're in the highly competitive Central Division. What do you think they're going to bounce back this year and do better? I know it may be more interesting story either way. Either I can't believe they're just as bad again, or they could be, ah, we're going back to where they should be. That's good. But is it just an interesting factor for you why you think you got the Predators higher?
Potentially. I just think that, and I know the game is not played on paper, but I just think when you do look at things on paper, I think there are players on the Predators that just have the capacity to get them that extra little bit. I don't think we're ever going to know why it went as wrong last year as it did. I'm sure there's probably lots of theories and reasons as to why. But I think you look at the likes of having Roman Yossi there and Jonathan Marchessault and Ryan O'Reilly and Steven Stamkos, and you look at that team and think that they just should be so much better. I mean, I had them at 26, so not massively, not pulling up any trees, but I think still better than the Kraken, just because I think that they have those players that can give them that extra bit more. UC Saros in goal as well is another factor there. Over someone of the likes of like Joey Decor or someone like that for the Kraken. So that was kind of my reasoning and rationale, really. Is I just think that when you look at the roster and how they're made up, they've just got a little bit more. I know we've talked a lot about star power and things like that, and I know maybe you're looking at that roster and thinking it's past star power and it's maybe not as much in the present, but I just think they have some slightly better tools at their disposal than the Kraken do.
And I think in reflection, and this isn't just me giving you a point back because you give me points earlier on. I do think when looking at our combined lineup, I'm happy if the Predators are above the Kraken here at sort of 27, 28. If we were talking about whether the Kraken will be the 30th worst team, I might have to put my foot down and argue a bit more because I don't think they're quite down low that much. But I think for the sake of 27 and 28, I think that's kind of like a fair place for where they're at.
Yeah, I can settle on that. And yeah, thank you for leveling the score. Although we do have one kind of discussion to go, so there is going to be an eventual winner here. So that
There
leads
is.
us into the final four teams. At 29th, we have the Boston Bruins. Now, I had them at 27. You had them at 30. So I'm going to give you an opportunity here to discuss why, in the same way as to why I thought the Kraken would be the 30th worst team, what for you makes the Boston Bruins potentially the 30th worst team in the National Hockey League?
The surprising sort of drop off the face of the earth that the Bruins has had over the past year. They are showing no signs of a team that are wanting to change and do better for me. I, I I don't see what their plan is. I don't see what their thing is. And obviously, they showed last year how bad of a team they were, and nothing's really changing from that. So although they have been successful and been successful recently, they've got players like Pasternak still there, scoring goals. But for me, like coming off of last year with how bad they were, and then seeing them make no changes over the off season, I just can't really see them making a big push back up the rankings. It wasn't necessarily a case of they had a bad year like the Rangers did, for example. It seems different to that. I just don't see them pull themselves back up this year.
No, that's reasonable. Yeah, I can't dispute that too much really. And I think they're a little bit of a question mark again. I know we've got a few of those up and down the league, but I suppose the it will be a question mark as to is the drop off, is that actually where they're at, or were they just having a really, really off year last year? And are they quite as bad as they were? And potentially, they could run it back with the same group of people and we'll see. Well, we'll just have to see sort of where everything ends up evening out. I do think they are a team on the decline, which obviously is why they're way down here in the depths of the league as opposed to up there for playoff contendership. But yeah, I think it's going to rely a lot on fitness. It's going to rely a lot on sort of team gelling and how much. How much it is they have to give because there's going to be a lot of guys on that Boston team who, they have to turn up this year because if they don't, there's going to be a bit more of a wide open consensus that maybe they're not the players suitable for this kind of caliber of team anymore, and they could find themselves without a job. Um, so yeah, it's going to be a massive year for the Bruins. I mean, I don't have any massive problems with you having them down at 30. To be honest, I mean, so I know I had them slightly higher at 27. But yeah, I don't really have. I completely understand your rationale.
Yeah, I just mean they had the Swayman Ullmark competition that were driving both of them keepers forward. They got rid of Ullmark, who didn't have that great a season in Ottawa, and then Swayman had an awful year last year. They've got Pasternak and Charlie McAvoy and stuff moving him forward, but the signings like Elias Lindholm has dropped off massively. Obviously, they've signed is it Nikita Zadorov, who's a bit of a powerhouse, but other than that, there's not really much inspiration coming from them. But this isn't a Bruins deep dive, so I think we should move on.
Yeah, absolutely. To our final debate, as we get to the final bottom three teams of the league, we're going to be discussing the Penguins and the Sabres. So I
Yeah,
had the Penguins at 31. You had the Penguins at 29. You had the Sabres at 31, and I had them at 29. So, I mean, I know we've just done a deep dive on the Penguins this week, which you can go and listen to episode 4 of the Penalty Box Perspective, and I just think there's very little hope for the Penguins this year. Certainly, as far as this season goes, I just think it's all caught up with them. The age of the team, the quality of the team, the loss of Mike Sullivan to the team as well. I just think that they are going to be right down the bottom there. But you seem to be of the opinion that role belongs to the Buffalo Sabres. So what do you think separates the Sabres and from the Penguins in terms of being the second worst team in hockey?
I think it comes down to Sidney Crosby. Might be a cop out answer here, but Pittsburgh has Crosby and the Sabres don't. The Sabres do have some obviously quality players, do nothing with them and seem to trade them away. Again, it might be a biased pick in terms of I might like the Penguins a bit more. We're arguing over 30 and 31 here, and I think Sidney Crosby will always edge out any team that Sabres can put out there. And I think it comes down to as simple as that, really.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't disagree there. I would maybe have the Sabres a little bit higher. I mean, they might not have Sidney Crosby, but they did re-sign Jack Quinn. So, let's not do them let's not do them too much of a disservice. Who needs Evgeny Malkin when you've got Jason Zucker, eh?
Yeah, well, this is
Oh,
your version of the President's Trophy. This.
um, so yeah, I mean, they're both going to be bad. I mean, I suppose they might not have a Sidney Crosby, but they do potentially have. Well, they have a Rasmus Dahlin, and
Yeah,
hopefully, this is maybe the year that Owen Power kind of finally realizes more as to what he is. Whilst I think you look at that back end for Pittsburgh, and outside of the kind of enigmatic Eric Carlson of never knowing really what you're going to get from him, I don't see anything really on their defensive end that's gonna help them too much.
your fantasy pickup, by the way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I've sat here bagged on the Penguins and still took Eric Carlson in my fantasy team. A little bit further down the lineup, but he's gonna complement Cale Makar very nicely.
I'll leave that with one. I'll leave this argument with one final point. If it convinces you, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I ask you, will the Buffalo Sabres care that they're better than the Pittsburgh Penguins?
Not even slightly.
In which case, that's my push for say that Pittsburgh are better than Buffalo, because Pittsburgh will still say, "Oh yeah, we're better than them chumps."
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'll let you have that. I'll let you take the 3-2 win. Yeah,
Come
no,
on,
yeah. I'll let you have it. I'll let you have it. Um, and
suck it, Sabres.
whilst you're updating our spreadsheet of power rankings, there, I'll lead us off into the final team, the San Jose Sharks. Now, we both had the San Jose Sharks unanimously at 32, and for me, I think the reason is that. Yes, they have a lot of very exciting players. Yes, they've got Macklin Celebrini, who is not a better player than Connor Bedard. They've got Will Smith, they've got
Yet,
Eklund, and I know that they've brought in. Stop it. I know they've got. They've brought in a lot of guys, a lot of veteran help, and a lot of guys who they're only going to play sort of 55, 60 games before they get traded at the trade deadline. And I just think that final 20 games of the season for the Sharks is going to be a painful watch. Um, I think they're going to go out there and just get the brakes beaten off them night in, night out. So I think they're going to lose an awful lot of that veteran help. It's going to be a team of kids, and I think they're potentially just going to get absolutely steamrolled. It's always very good having teams with some exciting young players in there, but they need to be complemented with some veteran presence. And I just don't think that they're going to have much of that at all. And I think there's, certainly after the trade deadline, they're just going to get absolutely flattened. Potentially could stand to be corrected. Maybe we get a 100-point season from Celebrini and we get 70 from Will Smith. Who knows? But I just think that you know they're very exciting going forward, but for this year, nah, not for me. I think that they might take a little bit of a step back, purely on the basis of the fact that a few of those other teams around the bottom might get a little bit better. So yeah, we'll see, we'll see. But I mean, I've got no qualms really with having the Sharks down at 32, and I imagine you don't either.
look, they've been the worst ranked team in the NHL according to our standings, which are obviously the most important thing in the world.
Of
Uh,
course,
it's never come with such sort of positive mentality. I don't think the Sharks can argue too much with it, and I don't think Sharks fans can be too upset by it either. But I think there is a lot of positivity to come from the Sharks. They are an interesting team, and I'll be watching them this year. It's safe to say you don't choose to watch the worst team in hockey week in, week out. I made a comparison in a previous episode to the Ducks and seeing how they progress, and I think I might have been a little bit off from that because I do think the Ducks have made some steps to improve, but I think the Sharks' time is to come. Even though they're 32nd now, and I would expect them to be sort of 10 points behind everybody else, at least in the league this year. I do think it's really exciting to see these new players come through. When I play sports games, I generally rely on youth academies and stuff like that, which is like the real life version of this. So I think it's it's going to be a good, interesting year for the Sharks. But yeah, I'm sorry, but you are last in our rankings at this current time.
Yeah. And I will caveat that with one final point before we wrap up the show. And that is that the Sharks might be 32 now, but looking, 12 months down the line, and when we revisit this in the pre-season of the 26-27 season, I think potentially they could be the team who move either, whether it be one way or the other, that move the most spots of any team. We might be talking about them as 32 this year. We could we could potentially be talking about them as high as 20 next year. They could make an absolutely massive jump. It's just not going to be this year. So yeah, sorry to any
Can't see
Sharks
it now.
fans there, but no, you don't see it now.
Yeah. No, I see it. Yeah, that's what I can see. I think they are
Oh,
going to
got
make
you.
that big jump, and yeah, uh, yeah. I think then what we'll do then, I'll recap. I'll run through again because I know there's been a bit of movers and stuff. I'll run through the 32 teams in order. Um, okay, so we got the sort of the top end contenders. I think you'd say in terms of the Panthers, then the Golden Knights, the Jets, the Oilers, the Avalanche, the Hurricanes, the Lightning, and the Leafs. I'll then go into the probably potential, obviously, playoff candidates likely to make the playoffs in the Wild, the Devils, the Stars, the Rangers, the Kings, the Capitals, the Habs, and the Blues, 16. And then I'd say we've got the playoff hopefuls in it's number 17, the Senators, then the Canucks, the Mammoth, the Flames, and the Blue Jackets. And then probably more into sort of the middle of the road teams, not expected to do terrible or to make the playoffs. And that's at number 22, the Ducks, the Red Wings, the Islanders, the Flyers, and then maybe the Blackhawks. And then obviously the Predators at 27. And then we've got the bottom dweller teams at 28 of the Kraken, the Bruins, the Penguins, the Sabres, and the Sharks. So reading through that now, have you got any sort of last minute gut changes you think like we should include, or are you happy with that rundown?
No, I'm quite happy with that. I think we've provided our rationales as to why. I'm happy with it now. I'm looking forward to revisiting it, a few months down the line and seeing, as and where we are. But yeah, no, I'm very happy with that. And if anyone has any any thoughts or feelings on those, and you want to either say we're spot on, or if you've got any points of contention you want to raise with us, you can always reach us at penaltyboxperspective@gmail.com, and on both Instagram and X at the PBP podcast. So please give us a follow there, get in touch with us, and always leave a 5-star review and some feedback if you like what we're doing here. But as we get towards the start of the regular season, obviously pre-season well underway. It's already nice to see hockey fans coming out the woodwork on social media and reacting extremely to any and all pre-season games. So yeah, hockey is back.
Can't believe my team lost this week. It's only the preseason. They're playing AHL players. They're not playing the actual
Yeah,
teams,
not
guys.
even not even AHL players, and sometimes it's like, okay, yeah, we've got a line of kids playing in like going back to juniors this year, but yeah, let's lose our minds over it. I think that's it. We've all just been
Absolutely.
deprived of it for so long. Uh,
It is
and
good to
then
have it back. It's good to have it back.
certainly is awesome stuff. Well, yeah, that was yeah, very good fun, Nathaniel. Thank you guys for listening. We will be back with our next sort of shorter episode, where not sure what we're diving into yet, but you'll just have to stick around and find out.
Absolutely. And then the bigger episode next week will be recapping the entirety or the there or thereabouts of the pre-season. So looking forward to that. And with that, it's time to say goodbye. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.